Hey everyone, it's Tim from Linessa Farms Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today. So today we wanted to take some time to go over 5 main points of consideration when teaching your lambs or goats to brace. Today we're specifically going to be talking about lambs, but a lot of the information that we cover is going to be applicable to goats as well. Stay tuned to find out more. Hi everyone, so today I wanted to talk to you about bracing. I want to go over 5 main points talking about bracing, why we do it, what it's there for. We're going to show you how we brace, but we're going to show you a whole lot more in this video than just the nuts and bolts of bracing. The first point that I want to make is that bracing is designed to help bring out the positive attributes in your animal. Bracing for one lamb or one goat kid may look different than bracing for another. You're going to have to invest time into bracing so you can find out what makes your animal look best. When you think about bracing, a lot of people think that we're showing off muscle, we're showing off a lot of positive attributes, but it's also important to remember that when you're bracing, you can also find ways to hide negative attributes of your animal as well. Perhaps your animal has a little bit of a sway in their back, perhaps they're a little too short, or perhaps they're a little too long. There's different methods that you can do to help bring out the positive attributes and hide the negative ones. The second main point that I want to make is bracing doesn't take place for all classes of animals. When you're trying to determine if your animal needs to learn how to brace or if they don't, you're definitely going to want to reach out to your local cooperative, your cooperative extension, maybe your 4-H leaders, individuals that have a lot of experience with the class that you're showing. So for instance, if we're showing a meat breed sheep or goat, if we're showing something that's going to be shown as a market class animal, we're almost definitely going to be bracing them. But if we're doing a show maybe for wool, or maybe we're doing a dairy goat, something like that, they may not require and they may not want you to have the animal brace. So it's very important that you ask those questions before you get into training. Now, the third point that I want to make is exactly what I just said, getting into training. Teaching your animal how to brace should be looked at more as an endurance sport. That is to say, your animal is going to have to learn how to brace, and it's going to have to learn how to do this over a long period of time. You're not going to be able to just grab a wild animal that's not used to being handled, bring them in, and all of a sudden expect them to brace for you. You have to work your way up to it. You have to start working with these animals when they're young. You have to spend time with them, get them comfortable being around you, get them comfortable being held, being touched, being moved, manipulated, things like that. So this is a long process. When we talk about the endurance point of this, we always want to practice like we play. That is to say, if you only practice with your show lamb or your show goat, and you only practice with them bracing maybe 2 to 3 minutes at a time, but then you get to the show and they have to brace, let's say for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you're in a champion drive, things like that. This could go on for a very long period of time. That animal has to build up its stamina in order to be able to perform when you actually get out into the show ring. Once you're out in the show ring, that animal has to be used to being around other animals. It has to be used to you, and it has to be used to other individuals putting their hands on them. So again, we want to practice like we play. Now, I do want to bring up one additional thing here that I think is important for you to remember. When I talk about practicing like you play, when we talk about animal welfare, I think it's important for you to keep animals in pairs, especially your sheep and goats. They just do better if they have a buddy. But you need to be cautious. If you have 2 lambs that are kept together and you never separate them, if you always do everything together with them, you stack them together, you walk them together, you brace them together, do everything together, you're setting yourself up for some problems when it comes to showtime, because when you get to the show and you have to separate these animals and go out and show them as individuals, chances are they are going to freak out. So when you bring them out to work with them daily, I want you to consider taking them out individually and at least getting them used to being away from one another. Point number 4 that you're going to need to consider is that not all animals are created equal. Some of these animals are going to want to stack themselves almost. They're going to drive, they're going to push. Other animals are not going to drive at all. There's certain problems that you may run into with each individual animal. I would say they're all very, very different. You may have an animal that wants to drop down when you push on them. You may have an animal that'll just back up no matter how hard you push on them and won't push back up against you. You may have an animal that stacks itself very, very well, and when you go to adjust their back feet, they'll step out of it. So there's lots and lots of things that you're going to have to consider. Again, you need to treat each animal as an individual. You need to work to find out what works for them and what makes them look best. The best thing you can do is get mom or dad or a friend of yours to videotape you or to take pictures of you when you're setting your animal up for show, when you're bracing them, AKA stacking them. It helps to have a visual cue. Now, some individuals will actually put a mirror up in the wall of their shop or outside, so when they're bracing their animal, they can actually see a reflection of themselves, and it helps them to kind of get to where they need to be. The 5th point that we're going to get into today is basically the nuts and bolts of actually bracing these animals. We're going to talk about a few problems that you may encounter and different things that you're going to want to consider when you're doing this. So Tessa, if you want to, this is Walter, right? So this is Walter. Walter is a 6-month-old Dorper Ram Lamb. He'll be showing an open class at a few county fairs this year. And he braces fairly well. He wants to push, but his issue is he doesn't like his back legs to be messed with, correct? Yep. And you got to kind of warm him up as you're getting into it with him. So go ahead and show us what we talk about when we talk about bracing. I'll move your bucket for you here. So as you can see, Tessa is bracing Walter right now. He is in a fairly comfortable position. He's not used to being worked with here inside the pen, so he's gonna be acting a little bit up on us today, but he drives fairly well. An issue that we run into with Walter is that he's very short. So you got to be cautious there on the front end of him to make sure that you're not pushing your knee into his trachea, anything like that. So he has a pretty nice flat look to his back. He braces fairly well. And as you can see, Tessa is doing her best to keep his head straight forward and in line with his spine. We don't want to turn the head. We don't want to have the head cocked from side to side. So as you can see, Walter is wanting to step out a little bit, and he does not like to have his legs messed with. Another point of consideration when you're taking these animals, if you probably can't see it in this video because of the video quality, but what I can see right now is I see a lot of little flies and gnats around his legs, and if you're going to be showing in an area that has a lot of flies, things like that, biting gnats, anything that's going to be bothering them, you are going to want to spray them down. You don't want to have them getting irritated when they're out in the show ring. All right, so we have him up on the stand now. You can vary the stand inclination depending on your methods, depending on how much you want them to brace. We will actually always, under supervision, we will put our animals in the stand for 10-15 minutes a day off and on to get them used to standing in this position and to help them build up some of their leg muscling just from going through the motions of pushing. This can be a valuable tool to use just to get them used to being handled. Make sure that you are not overheating them, make sure that you are not overworking them, and make sure that you work them into this. Again, this is a good opportunity for you to work with the animal, to lay your hands on them, and to get them used to being handled. Again, we always want to practice like we play. That is to say, we want to stack them, we want to brace them on this in the position that we want them to stand. We want them to get used to being in this specific position. That way, when we go out to the show ring, we're not trying to teach them some new kind of tricks. Today, if you are not familiar with our website, make sure you check it out. We have lots of articles, we have an online store, and lots of valuable information for you. You can see us at www.linessafarms.com. If you are not a member of our online Facebook forum, you are definitely going to want to check that out as well. You can do a simple search on Facebook for Linessa Farms Tack Box. That's right, Linessa Farms Tack Box. We have all kinds of individuals from all over the United States and also abroad available to help answer some of your toughest questions regarding sheep and goats. Again, that's Linessa Farms Tack Box on Facebook.
Here, buddy. We were talking about hand position. You'll see people all the time with their hands showing sheep like this and leading them. Sweep your fingers in, go into the throat latch, and then this line's gonna look better. You'll see people, they talk about the pistol thing. They'll be holding lambs like this,
right,
and get their hands covering the throat. You want to have that line, be able to see it as much as you can. A hand position where you're going like, instead of fingers down, cupped. All those things are important for kids showing the first time. Hand in there makes this look, that doesn't look nearly as attractive as this does when you're leading them, when you're between the jawbones.
Absolutely.
You know, so there's all kinds of, hand positioning is really critical in showing. Kids showing, I love this when they do the headshot when you come to do it and I'm judging. This kid will be going like this. They got their hands here holding their ears up. Their fingers are spread so they're covering all the neck extension. They'll back up and they'll go like this and grin at you. And it's like, think about your sheep. Your first responsibility is always your animal. Never give the judge a bad look. Second is ring courtesy. I try to be courteous when I'm judging in return. Make it easy for me to judge. I'll try and make it easier to show. I've seen people do these showmanships where they have the star or the H, or they got kids in the middle of the show ring and they're wandering around trying to catch them on the wrong side.
Right.
That's just foolish to me. At a major show, there's two positions. You're looking at rear or side view. That's the showman's side of the sheep. That's the judgment side of the sheep. I'm not doing anything different than I would if I was judging a national show somewhere. There, he's a little better. So we were talking about showing, we'll get into that while I'm holding him. Head in line, cup your hands, don't be doing this. We talked about being able to have the judge's eyes follow the line. Think about getting your hands. This should be 90 and 90. If he was up in his top, I would have tipped his nose higher like this, because that'll flatten that out. Leg wrap, they're not showing like this. People are getting in front of them and showing them with their nose up. A lot of those sheep aren't structurally very good, and they are up in their top. Okay. So they're getting around in the front more. How much you wrap your leg depends on what your sheep is like. A shorter bodied sheep, you should be off it a little bit so it looks longer. If you got one that's too short, if you got one that's too long, cover a little more so he looks shorter. If he's bold, if he's got a chest plate, cover it. Really, your body position, again, determines each individual animal shown differently. That idea of showing in front of a mirror so the kid can see instant feedback of what it looks like is really important.
Bracing is concerned, how much time do you spend doing that during a day? Do you brace every day for a while? And,
Yes, sir. As much as we can. You want them to have the stamina to show in the ring.
Right.
So we'll work them up and down the driveway for 15, 30 minutes, and you start slow and build them up to a good time, about the time you're going to be in that show ring, so you know they're going to sit still and have the stamina to show at the show.
Gotcha. A lot of our people are brand new to sheep. Can you give us kind of a walkthrough about where your hands are going and how you're getting them to brace for you?
So you want their feet to be square. You don't want them spread out too far, because then, that's going to take away from their muscle. It's going to make them look flatter muscled. And then you don't want them too narrow. You want their legs coming straight out from their body. Same with their front feet. You want those square, straight down. It's different for everyone where you place your hands. It's whatever's comfortable with you. The animal's head it's still part of the animal, so you don't want to cover it up too much or anything. You kind of want your hand down here. You want that head coming up straight out of the shoulder. And for me, I turn my toe out so they have more surface area right here on the inside of my thigh to drive. And you just train them to give you that little bit of brace back. It's different on each animal how much they need to make them feel hard.
Sure. And I suspect that the height of the animal, the height of the showman, that can play roles too, right?
Yes,
I know sometimes sometimes it can be difficult getting them to brace if they're a little too short or you're a little too tall. You get somebody like Aaron, I don't even know how he does it.
Yes.
He probably has to squat, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Well, very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
As always, we greatly appreciate you joining us again today. Make sure that you give a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. We will be back very soon with more valuable information for you. I'm Tim from Linessa Farms Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.